Yo, I'm just trying to make pimping my stuff a little bit more fun. So I have a YouTube channel, which is where you're probably watching this. That's Postmortem Video. I have a second channel called Grimstream. It's not got the proper name yet, but if you search for it, you should find it. And if you're trying to stop sucking at the teat of YouTube, you can always head on over to BitChute and find me at Grim Jim. Alright, just a quickie, so drop your knickers, bend over the desk. There's a good girl. Just to kind of reassure you that I'm still alive, let's discuss the recent controversy around Candlekeep Mysteries and POC Gamer. And I'm not above making the cheap and obvious joke. He's more of a POS gamer. He wrote one of the adventures for Candlekeep Mysteries, and that whole module of little adventures is not as woke as was advertised, which, depending on which side of these issues you fall, you might see as a good thing or a bad thing. But they did really big it up as being this woke module with things like wheelchair accessible dungeons, and the aspects of it were written from different perspectives because, you know, skin colour is so fundamentally important to the perspective that you have in the world and makes such a huge difference to the kind of mindset that you have, obviously. I mean, duh. But some people really seem to have bought into the idea that this was anything more than a pure corporate virtue signal, and seem to have been blindsided by the fact that it is not exactly as advertised. POC Gamer wrote one of these adventures, and he seems to have taken an issue with the fact that an editor edited his manuscript. Now, an editor, according to the Oxford English Dictionary, is a person who is in charge of and determines the final content of a newspaper, magazine, or a multi-author book, or a person who commissions or prepares written or recorded material for publication or broadcast, the second being a sort of commissioning editor. In the RPG industry, most editors kind of fall between the two. Some are more project managers, some are more editors. I've had good or bad experiences with editors on both sides, but if you are an author or a creative person of any sort, you might prefer my definition of an editor, which is a rapacious and sociopathic destroyer of manuscripts, a joyless pedant who feasts on broken dreams and dashed hope. Nonetheless, I will admit that editors have their uses, because it is very hard to edit your own manuscript, even with the tools that you have available to you these days, such as Grammarly or basic grammar and spelling checking within word processing programs, or using text-to-speech to listen to your text back to yourself. You still can't quite replicate the full utility of having an editor. But margins are so razor thin in the gaming industry, and there just isn't the money there, that having an editor is a privilege, albeit an extremely painful one, like having enough money to hire a dominatrix to spank you. It's painful, but it's a privilege. About the only way you're really going to have editors is when it comes to a very successful Kickstarter project, or if you're writing for one of the handful of big boys in the RPG industry. And in that instance, you're trading authorship, complete control over your own manuscript and final product for an audience at scale and better pay. That's the trade-off. Editors, companies, may have goals that differ from yours, and in the case of Wizards of the Coast, and in particular in the case of Candlekeep Mysteries, I think their goals were more brevity, clarity, accessibility to new gamers, a broader audience, and so on. So if you go into it being preachy, adding unnecessary additional details like new playable races and so on, that isn't the kind of thing that they generally include in pure adventure books, not that they do many of those these days, and these are going to be the casualties of editing, and that seems to be the case here. It doesn't seem to be anything to do with racism or a culture of racism at Wizards of the Coast. It doesn't seem to be anything of that sort at all, but pretending that it is, and kicking up a big stink just because you got your feelings hurt by an editor. And trust me, I empathise with that, I sympathise with that. It's amateurish, it's unprofessional, and it suggests that someone has gone into this not understanding what the role of an editor was. So buck up, put on your big boy pants, and suck it up if you're going to work and get bigger audiences through Wizards or other large and medium scale RPG companies, or you can just sod off and work for yourself, which is what I do, because I don't particularly want to be edited. Now that's the way to deal with it. If you want to be an auteur, be an auteur. It's been called misogynistic, racist, a hate group, reactionary. It's been blamed for Trump, for keeping women out of games and technology. None of this is true. If you want the real story, then you need to buy Inside Gamergate.